What are your all-you-can-eat buffet horror stories? Not me, but my dad was eating at a big Chinese buffet chain with my mom and two brothers. None of the waitresses spoke English and there was a very large language barrier. Dad spilled a cup of soup all over the crotch of his pants, shyly waved a waitress over and asked for a damp washcloth. They had to try and explain it to her for a minute or two before she understood. My dad turns in the seat to take the cloth and she gets on her knees and proceeds to rub his crotch with the rag. The whole family was shocked. The neighboring families were shocked. My dad literally had no clue how to handle it. He just threw his arms up and looked at my mom as if doing a hand check. My mom told him not to dare tip because she already had a tip. One time I went with my parents and some relatives to the Paris buffet in Las Vegas. My dad was starving himself all day so he could fill up on crab legs at the buffet. So anyway, these relatives are just bitter, slow-ass people who make the whole day miserable. One of them is a very old woman in a wheelchair that my dad is pushing around all day. Basically he's hot and hungry and miserable, but excited for dinner. Then right when we get to dinner, the old lady throws up all over the table. Stinky, old lady vomit that would bother anyone, but my dad specifically is a sympathy puker. The relatives tried to complain and say the food made her sick, but we didn't even eat yet. We ended up leaving without eating anything. Some other tables nearby cleared out as well. I was really young when this happened, but I remember my dad walking towards the table with a huge plate of crab legs and big smile and then his face just totally falling. Poor dad. I'll never forget when I was a teenager and working the buffet line at a Ponderosa steakhouse. This morbidly obese child, probably like 8ish, had a plate with a mountain of food. Like some of literally almost everything from the buffet. Mashed potatoes, pizza, chicken wings, jello, pudding, like everything piled on top of each other. So I go up to him because it was bizarre and I'm like, hey, you know you can use a second plate? He said I'm only allowed to have one plate. So like his parents were trying to restrict his diet and he just found a loophole. But if you have a kid with this sort of issue, maybe don't go to a buffet. What the hell? I'm having flashbacks to the Single Sweet Life on Deck episode I ever saw, where they were in crew class and only allowed one tiny plate each. Way back before you needed a Canadian passport to cross the border into the US, my family would make regular trips into Michigan and Ohio. Once we were at a Ponderosa buffet and my dad put something on his plate that he couldn't identify. He wasn't sure if it was chicken or fish even after tasting it, but for some ungodly reason he ate the rest anyway. Cut to 20 minutes later and we're all packed into the van listening to my dad loudly vomit repeatedly into a bush in the parking lot. He sounded like someone was forcibly tearing out his insides, and I still remember the sound to this day. People walked right past him and kept going inside. People walked right past him and kept going inside. I'll have what he's having. Went to a buffet for my dad's birthday one Saturday night. The workers had just brought out the new tray of crab legs and there was a line forming. My family and I waited patiently in line, when the guys in front of us starting arguing because one of them was taking too long to pick which pieces he wanted. Arguing turned into shoving, and then finally one of the guys pushed ahead and stuck his hand into boiling hot water, grabbed a couple crab legs, threw them on his plate and left the line. Pretty sure he had to leave soon after because he had some serious burns on his hand. What a reffing power move. I worked at an office that had an all-you-can-eat cafeteria, and I gained 40 pounds. How can I get a job here? Nice buffet too. Kind with king crab legs and full fillets. Some kid was licking every serving spoon clean after putting what he wanted on his plate and putting it right back in the food. Reading that made me literally gag. I'm a firm believer that you should never hit kids, especially someone else's kid. But then I hear stuff like this, and I think swing away Meryl. Went to a soup plantation a few years ago and someone literally threw up in one of the soups. As someone living in a country without a soup plantation, how do you have a plantation of soups? My mother insisted on going to hometown buffet because she found a coupon in the newspaper. The whole buffet smelled heavily of bleach. All the food tasted like it was trying to die, but the preservatives were keeping it on life support far beyond normal reason. I stuck mainly to the salad bar and fruits. I'd been using the small portion plates to make salad with veggies and a little ranch dressing. I went back for a third small plate of salad and veggies. I grabbed the ladle in the ranch dressing tub and poured it over my salad. At that moment a ranch dressing covered Lego man fell out of the ladle and onto my food. I'm glad you asked. In my hometown in Lancaster, PA, there were a bunch of cheap and trashy Chinese buffets. A few years ago some kids accidentally drank some caustic chemical and had to be hospitalized. They think one of the kitchen crew didn't understand English and mistook the chemical for apple juice or something. A server delivered a massive, 2 feet long platter of fresh made sushi to the buffet tables. People were lined up waiting for it. A 400-pound woman picked up the platter, ignoring everyone else, and took it to her table. She ate the effing lot. I watched one of my friends pile a plate with bacon until he'd placed the entire tray worth on his plate. It was about a foot high. Bacon eating contest begin. He ate the whole thing. He was sick for 3 days. Not directly food related, but the Chinese buffet in my town got busted by ICE for human trafficking. They were bringing workers over from China and paying them below minimum wage. Eventually one of the workers contacted the police, but I think it backfired and they ended up getting deported. ICE then showed up at the home of the owners, which happens to be in my neighborhood. Somehow the restaurant is still open. I don't quite know the whole story, but people still go there, even knowing what all happened. Unsure if it has new owners or if the previous owners still live in my neighborhood. Edit. This was in Southeast Michigan for everyone asking. When I was an emo middle schooler, my best friend's mom forced me to join Girl Scouts with them. Once she took the whole Girl Scout troop out to a restaurant with a salad bar. I got stuck sitting next to a girl I hated. She was very religious and this was the first time she had ever been away from her mom. She was around 14, and she wasn't allowed to have sugar. She ordered a large strawberry milkshake, chugged it, ate a huge plate full of spinach with ranch on it, and then vomited bright pink vomit all over the table, the floor, herself, and me. The worst part was that we had to sit in the car with her for the 2-hour drive home, holding our breath. Not that bad, but I watched my brother clear an entire platter of biscuits and then saw many people walk up to it and go, "Oh." I went to a Golden Corral one time and I walked in and it smelled like ass, and it was filled with crackheads and hobos. There were also these kids running around with no shoes on and eating off the buffet spoons, and the guy who was cooking steak had his sweat dripping onto the grill and steaks. That was my first and last time at a Golden Corral. When I was little, I decided I was going to get dessert first. I went to the bar and saw the best looking fluffy cheesecake pudding looking stuff I've ever seen. I got the biggest scoop possible and plopped it onto my plate. I got back to the table and sat down to see what my parents would say. They said nothing, and my dad just smiled in approval. I got the biggest spoonful I could and shoved it in my mouth. And then another. Then it hit me. But it was too late. Twas no cheesecake. Twas butter. I almost puked. Dad laughed. Went to a buffet with the kids. I thought I was doing a good job wrangling the kiddos, until I looked down to see my 2-year-old son slurping jello off the floor of the Chinese buffet. I was pretty sure he was going to end up with some weird disease, but he was fine. I swear, they need to study that boy's immune system. Probably has the cure for all cancers just floating around in his lymph nodes or something. My friend in 7th grade puked all over the stairs on the Pizza Hut entrance right after a lunch buffet. The manager came out and got pissed off, telling him it's supposed to be an all-you-can-eat buffet. My friend told him yeah, that was all I could eat. I was 9, and in Australia at an all-you-can-eat buffet that served ice cream and breakfast all day. We found some stuff that looked like Nutella and I took some huge chunks and threw in some cereal. I don't know why. It was Vegemite. Was at a Golden Corral, looking for a place to sit, when my ICU nurse, ex-wife, spotted an obese man eating at a booth. She whispered to me that man is having a heart attack. He looked completely fine to me, laughing with his family and pushing Holdener rolls into his mouth with his sausage fingers. 10 minutes later he was quite unwell. Ex-wife sprung into action, had a family member call 911. and provided care until EMS arrived. She was right. I used to work at a Ponderosa and there was this elderly woman and a young, I would say no older than 8-year-old girl that were regulars. The grandmother would tell the granddaughter to go into the bathroom and vomit to make room for more food, because she didn't want to feed her again later. Come to think of it, she wasn't the only bulimic patron we had there. There was this one really good Chinese buffet that my brother and I went to pretty often. When we first got there, we noticed there was this huge population of creepy old dudes and their Asian child brides, mail order brides. They were greasy unattractive old dudes who literally sat there while the women filled their plates and brought it to them. They looked so dejected. Barf. Proposed to my now wife at Osaka Grill and Buffet in their party room, after the original plan got rained out. Everything went well and we all ate plenty. Time goes by and I was shopping nearby the restaurant one day when cops and ICE trucks pull up to the restaurant and raid. I later found out it was shut down for sex and human trafficking. Once at a buffet, my brother saw the wasabi and decided to eat an entire spoonful while in line. We were around 12. He immediately screamed and ran out of line, back to the table to get more water. While he was running, he shoved aside this woman and her dish broke on the floor, food going everywhere. I was following after my brother and immediately stopped to apologize to this woman, intending to help clean her up. She immediately says, "No you aren't," and starts cussing me out. Being 12, I just ran away. We did not see her again the rest of the night. But I did tell my parents on my brother. Saw a kid take a spoon out of the crushed Oreos, lick it, then stick it back in. Went to a Chinese buffet one time. I was on my way to the bathroom and as I passed the door into the kitchen a staff member came out. I got a glimpse into the kitchen and I saw two women squatting and cutting vegetables on the floor. I didn't really eat much after that. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more daily Reddit videos.